I'd like you to do me a favor for a quick second and consider whether you're a coffee drinker, a tea drinker, or perhaps both. It turns out that research and literature, science, tells us quite a bit about our tea drinkers versus our coffee drinkers. To our tea drinkers, we know that you mosey on out of your beds every morning, put on your most comfortable robe, and make your way to the kitchen. Our tea drinkers fill the kettle and wait patiently for the whistle that sends a warm sensation throughout their body. The sound of their filled teacup hitting the saucer just adds another dimension to their already satisfying experience. Our tea drinkers, they make their way to the comfy sofa situated directly at the window where nearby raindrops fall so gently. So comfy and eloquent, our tea drinkers wrap themselves in a nearby blanket, and of course, what does every tea drinker have to accompany them in this experience? A cat, right? It's science. We know all of this to be true of our tea drinkers. But here's what else I know. I would never ask a tea drinker to play on my sports team. I would never call upon a tea drinker to solve a complex problem, and I sure as heck would never consider inviting a tea drinker to my party. Coffee drinkers, on the other hand, what does science tell us about our coffee drinkers? Well, we know that our coffee drinkers are just full of energy, made up of the same energy that is given to us when we consume our coffee. Our coffee drinkers, with all that caffeine, are our high performers. They're on the run all day, getting stuff done, being productive. When it isn't coming from a coffee, they perhaps supplement it with an energy drink. It's science. And what does every coffee drinker have for companionship that a tea drinker couldn't possibly connect with? A dog, man's or woman's best high-performing friend. Coffee drinkers, they're who I can relate to. They're who I want on my team. And I can't invite enough coffee drinkers to my party. They're my people. They're who I connect with, who I trust, and who I want to be around. Am I right? After all, it's science. Welcome to Stigma, and stigma around mental illness works the exact same way. In any context, stigma develops as a cycle with 4 key elements. The first key element that speaks to how stigma develops is labeling. In my earlier and admittingly jokingly example, I labeled you as either a tea or a coffee drinker. With mental illness, we label someone with a condition. They become their condition. Someone who lives with depression is depressed. Someone who struggles with addiction is an addict. In all cases, the individual is labeled as their diagnosis. After labeling comes the stereotypes. That is, specific characteristics or traits are assigned to the individuals who are labeled. For someone who's living with a mental illness or experiencing a mental health crisis, stereotypes that we often hear might include things like weak, needy, incompetent, that they have a poor attitude, or just need to suck it up. The stereotypes that are assigned to the individual as a result trigger the third element of a developing stigma, which is that they create a division. The division takes all of those stereotypes, traits, and characteristics of the person living with a mental health problem and separates those individuals from those who are healthy, capable, competent, strong, have a positive attitude, and so forth. It implies a lower social status for the individual we have placed over there, who's different from us. The division that is created indicates there is a superior us group and a devalued them group. And where this becomes incredibly problematic and consequential is when the fourth element arises, which is discrimination. When people are labeled, stereotyped, and divided, they are discriminated. They are not given the same opportunities to develop, to make meaningful relationships or connections, to find success in their lives. Whether we apply this to the context of mental illness, possible stressors that are a part of living in rural communities, or any other context for that matter, the same holds true. And while the stigma that comes from the outside in can be extremely debilitating, so too is the internal stigma that is carried and often hidden by the person who is living with a mental health problem or illness. Internal stigma wrapped by guilt and shame, that we aren't enough, that we're not doing enough, are incapable, are a burden. The guilt and shame that we have read about and heard from so many in various farming and rural communities while facing all of the stressors and uncertainties that come with the life. Well, one of the beautiful things about our guilt and shame is that when we learn to speak it, it can't exist. And this is something I've been very blessed to learn through my own struggles with mental illness and addiction over the years. We are starting to see this more in the media and hopefully within your circles and communities. Finding the strength and courage to share our stories is one of the most impactful ways to break the cycle of stigma. And very luckily, as we talked about the role of labeling, stereotyping, creating a division and discrimination, it is within our control to avoid engaging in any of these behaviors and mentalities ever. Thanks for watching and take care.